Good morning, good afternoon, good everyone joining the webinar today. Appreciate you joining. As Blake said, the hashtag on Twitter for the webinar is hashtag #KIStrategy, and I'd love to see a few of you over in the use Twitter as well during the event today. As Blake said, what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the need for HR technology strategy, and you've seen already in some of the slides the concept of HR technology strategy and workforce technology strategy, and we'll talk about the difference of those and where that change has come from. Look at the agenda. What we're going to talk about today is, first of all, where business is at, why HR and HR technology strategies are important, and if you don't have one, or if you don't know if you have one, why necessary. What changed? Well, you need one. We all know that there's been some changes in vendor landscape and things like that. What else has changed? What should do to respond to those changes? Why now? Is this important now? How do we do it? And then plenty of time for questions. We made the webinar 90 minutes so that we could get to all of your questions. So please, whenever you have a question, type it into the chat window. Please tweet it as well if you want to. We'll get to your questions, and we'll have plenty of time to make sure that we answer your questions throughout the event as well as after the event also. Real?
I'm real, Jason. Let's do it.
Good deal. So what I wanted to do is start with this whole, what is knowledge infusion? Believe it or not, we've had people that attend webinars for as long as we've been doing them, for the 6-7 years of our company's existence, and still people don't know what we do. So what I thought I would do is start with what we stand for. And what this ties back to is why we care so much about strategy. If you read this, every HR and business leader has visions of greatness. It may be of creating a culture, maybe of reinventing the company to recapture the lead in the industry. What does these changes as people? People play a huge impact in everything that goes on, and what guides these people is an approach to human capital and how we drive human capital. What we stand for is helping organizations leverage people, capital, to achieve strategic advantage. What we do and how we deliver it. Our methodology that we use to deliver all of our services to organizations like yours is called KI1. And it is an end-to-end methodology that allows you to create strategies, deploy those strategies and technologies, measure whether those strategies are actually meeting the outcomes that you're looking for, and extending those capabilities of your strategy to continue to grow. Once again, one of the things we see often is people get stuck. They deploy something and then they continue to grow. And how do you continue to extend that capability over time? So what are some of those things that we do? Everything from developing HR and talent management strategies, service delivery strategies, portal strategies, making vendor recommendations as we move over into the deploy category, fully deploying the strategy, which includes the technology, but also includes change management, process change, et cetera, measuring the progress of that and what the outcomes are that you're trying to achieve, and how do you continue to extend those capabilities over time. So this methodology is really the industry's first end-to-end service delivery methodology to create, deploy, measure, and extend business strategies. And what we're going to talk about today is that mix of people, process, and technology, what starts with strategy, and what everything else you do from an HR technology standpoint is to be dependent on the strategy that you create. We have over 400 organizations that range in size, from the Doctors Without Borders with 50 employees, to the U.S. Postal Service with over 1 million employees. So wide range of clients, all focusing on how to get the most out of their people. So put there really quickly, just from the standpoint of making sure that we know what we do. And everything that we talk about today is tied back to the work that we do ongoing with clients. Blake, we have one person that joined the Twitter stream and said hello. So thank you for that person that joined the Twitter stream. If others join, make sure you say hi to us over there as well. So let's talk about today. But as Blake said, the iPad 3 being announced, where we had comments from Apple keeps us on the edge to now I'm 3 behind to can't wait to get it. What else is going on in business today that truly drives truly drives what we're trying to do and why strategy is so important to start with. Let's start with this first thing. We know that companies are up against a huge set of challenges that will require unprecedented solutions. Every single company in the world has changed. We're in a few minutes. But every single company has changed. Scary for the positive. What does it mean? It means knowledge has become a commodity. There's a lot of smart people around working for our competitors. There's a lot of smart people working for our organizations. How do we make sure we leverage people? This new generation believes ideas should compete on equal footing. We live in a very collaborative world. Some people love it, some people hate it, but a collaborative world. We have this concept of social media subverting traditional management. Scary. Important, because we know that collaboration is starting to drive how people work, what drives them, what drives engagement, and how they're managed. And finally, we know that we have to combine this sort of management 2.0 structure, which is not org structure based on the GL or how we do payroll. We need to keep business running. It's a tremendous impact on what we need to do and what we're trying to do from a HR standpoint. If we look at all of the customers we work with around the world, have a series of characteristics in common. And assume that most of these are going to be, some of these, if not most of these, are going to be applicable to you. They have a global component, they have a local component, and what we call global, which is really a combination of what are the things I need to be looking at globally, yet meeting the needs of a local basis. So what I have from a global standpoint, yet meeting the needs on a local basis. The world has changed drastically since most of us have implemented our last generation of HR technology, whereas the world has become much, much smaller. Overused cliche, but we're all global. In the world either recruits people globally, buys things globally, sells things globally, brings people in globally. The world is global. The U.S. can't be seen as U.S. and international. The way is global. Everyone's in the need of talent. It's going to continue to be hard to come across. How do we do that? Innovation is at the core. The only way I grow as a company is innovate. If just maintain status quo, I die. You've heard the comments of adapt or die. The only way that I stay alive is by adapting. I mean, look around us. We've got the Kodaks, Barnes and Nobles, the Borders, not the Barnes and Nobles. We've got the concept of the circuit cities. We have organizations left and right. We have customers of ours that can't produce drugs fast enough as new drugs come off patent and old drugs try to come on patent. So all those things being said, we have to have innovation at the core. We have to be agile, and we're constantly changing to survive. Work of both efficiencies and effectiveness. We save money. How do we add value? We have this acknowledgement that only the bold survive. I'd love if everyone in HR and HR technology would just take the time, and we encourage everyone in our organization to do this, to create an OSM. Do you want to say what that is?
Shit moment, my favorite.
The moment. How do you get an oh shit moment where you really have to do something bold to survive and stand out? Hopefully people will tweet that. OSM, oh shit moment. Go back to, and the person that gets credit for that is Steve Farber, who writes a great book called The Radical Edge. And this shift from this buy economy to the subscription economy. I'm not buying things, I'm buying to them, which changes how I use them, which changes my responsibilities around them, et cetera, et cetera. So when we look at that, we see the business world has changed. The demands of HR business today have changed as well. How have they changed?
I would jump in and say I say that the stuff on that last slide, we hear every day. Our interactions with business leaders and our interactions with HR leaders and executives. I mean, these things right here are very top of mind as we look at how we're formulating strategies and the things we're trying to solve for as we do that work.
And the other thing that's really important about that, Neil, is that this concept of the buy economy to the subscription economy. You might not know you talk about that every day, but when we talk about cloud computing, that's what we're talking about. When people say, "Well, we shift everything to the cloud, we go into the what about our ERP? Blah 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 blah." That shift that's so critical when you're thinking about where the world business is today from a technology standpoint, but even as you sell products in your business. HR demanding. The business has been demanding of this for HR for a long time. More intelligence, not about how HR is doing, but about HR is impacting the business. Visibility into global talent. How do I break down talent silos in addition and give visibility to global talent? Value add activities. How do I make sure that I'm doing something that's driving business value? Some business strategy and growth. HR sitting there as I'm innovating. Here's where we're going to help you. Here's listening to what you need and being ready to do it. And at the same time, eliminating costs, not driving competitive advantage. What does that mean? The HR is thinking about what are the things that we do in the function that cost money, giving us a competitive advantage. About that, and we think about all of those things and those demands of HR, let's do a quick poll and say, how much has your business and HR function changed since you last purchased your core HR platform? Core HR being your HR system, your payroll system. How much has your business and HR function changed since you made that purchase? You want to jump in?
You want to make a bet here on which one comes out on top? I'm guessing it's D, Jason. So 78%
I bet
are going to say
a lot of people don't sit back and actually smell the roses or smell the other stuff to actually realize how much it's changed. I bet we're going to be B as the winner.
Maybe it's going to be B. All right.
Yeah. When you think about this, understand that many people are still running client-server platforms. Many people are still running Windows platforms. Many people are running web-based programs that they think are internet-based programs, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll be very interested to see, the poll results come back here, and they should be back in a second. By the way, for those of you that have asked questions, thank you so much for submitting them. There's already at least a couple good questions here. I love. So Neil, looks like we're right in the middle. 68% say quite a bit or even recognize it, which is huge. 2% say some, 1% say none. That's out of the 300 or so people on, that's a huge number. If 78%, either the business has changed quite a bit, or they can't recognize it, business or their HR function has, yet still have my same core HR platform. Question. Core HR platform and what I'm doing from an HR standpoint, have I adopted it? Have I adapted it? Have I been able to adapt it to how the business has changed? You see in most cases is the answer to that is no. Neil, do you have anything to that real quick?
Yeah, I think it's the old model of technology that creates a challenge. And the old way of customizing your platform to meet your business needs and the cost associated with that, I think has really been prohibitive, Jason.
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Greg just came in on Twitter. If people were honest, they should not recognize their business from the one that when they bought their core HR system. I think that's true. I mean, I think most people, business has changed and HR has changed so much that it's the question is have you adapted your HR systems, your processes and systems to this new world that we live in today? And the most of that, the answer is no, which starts with strategy. So when we move to the next piece and say, what's really changed, let's think about that. And what's really changed is everything. And when we say everything, what does that mean? And sometimes when we do these webinars, people write me notes and say, "You're making this so dramatic. You're making this so drastic. What do we do?" Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I had an email come in that said, start with your sales pitch. You never start with your sales pitch. Well, it was funny. We do the sales pitch because we get the emails all the time of people saying, "We don't know what to do. We think you just put on webinars," et cetera. The reason we do the sales pitch is so you guys know where our information comes from, so you know that we're working with clients who are telling us these things every single day. So let's look at what's changed. First, workforce. We know the workforce is more mobile. We know it's more collaborative. We know it's more social. We know more 24/7, and we know it's more in the need of leadership and direction. For this, and want to go back to Neil, whose job is leading an entire set of strategic services at Knowledge Infusion. This is what people are talking about every day and saying we need to think about the impact of these as we create our HR technology strategy. Neil, anything to that?
Absolutely, Jason. As we work with even a wide variety of clients, industry, vertical, you name it. I think these things are on the mind of every HR technology professional out there, every CIO. It's really that strategy of how do we take what we do to the people, not make them come to us. The old day of making them come to us, walking up to the window, grabbing the form, those days are gone. And it's, how do we put the power in the people's hands? Is it the mobile device? Is it the iPad, the Dell Streak, the Samsung Galaxy? What is it? How do we get HR in the hands of those people?
Yeah, there's a great question that came in that I'm just going to read really quick. I'm going to answer it, and we go on to the next slide. The question is, in this environment, how do you get your leadership's attention? Brilliant question for the person that asked the question. The purpose of this webinar is to do just that. Of all of these things we're going to talk about for the next hour and 8 minutes, if you could grasp onto one or two of them that back to your overall business strategy, your leadership's attention. Okay? It's completely different. Company, by industry, et cetera. So, in some of these things we put up there, it's not going to be in every company. All of these things are the issue. But there should be at least one thing that you grasp onto. One that you grasp onto that will be able to get their attention based on what the business strategy is. So business, know that. Demands of HR, huge. Of the talent initiative. Who owns talent? Who owns talent? Dependency on HR. Many more business lines are starting to do things that HR used to do. A huge competitive landscape that every single business is looking at today, and everyone being global. So when we get that, the workforce has changed, the business continues to change. The HR function continues to change. What does that mean? Transformation, blah, 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 word of the day. HR is trying to become more business-driven. More lists, few generalists. Focus on competitive advantage capabilities. Are focusing on the things that truly drive competitive advantage. A desire to be quantitative, where I really, really want to be able to understand numbers and be able to tell stories about those. And finally, new leaders. What leaders mean? The people that are coming out of school today to lead HR functions are different than the people that have led HR functions in the past. Coming out of school with a data background or an operations background, or getting transferred from other parts of the business that have operations background, a data background, a manufacturing background, brought in to lead HR because they know what it's going to take for HR to drive the business, quote unquote, versus someone that has just an HR background. Once again, that may or may not be the case in your organization. If any of this stuff on this slide is applicable to a company, I'd love for you to just type yes or no in the Q&A box so that we can see it. I know that for me, when I go work with customers, that you can always tell where a leader came from, whether they came from the business or whether they came from HR. I want to talk about that real quick and the work that we do.
Absolutely, Jason. What we're seeing more and more of, I think, in the ranks of leadership at our clients is folks that have actually gotten pulled out of the business to take on the task of HR, and really bring that business focus to HR. Right? I think as we've seen in the past, HR has had this propensity to build the perfect process, and it's not necessarily a process that's right for the business. It may be right on paper, but it doesn't necessarily deliver the right business outcome that the business needs, or needed to really drive goals and objectives of the overall business strategy. So really putting that business lens in HR and really right sizing what needed, I think it's been an approach we're seeing happen more and more as we work with our clients across the country and across the world.
Yeah, really interesting comments. A couple comments. One's that we're actually shifting to more generalist business partners to fewer specialists, which is actually, if you think of the business partner, when I actually said specialist, that's what I was speaking of, is more business partners, of those generalists who really cover everything HR specific. But very good point added. Another comment that someone made is this comment of, our company only staffs corporate HR VPs from operating company business leaders in a 3-year rotation to bring into experience, which I think is very good also. Another question that's come in, and someone else said interesting to hear, that's normal. Another thing that just came in that I really love is Germans have been the battle cry for the last decade. What's so different today in 2012? And someone gets a bigger prize for asking that question. Make sure that we talk about that, because it's huge. And one of the things that I think that all of us need to look in the mirror and say is, what's really changed? Has anything really changed? And what do we need to do to take advantage of the world we are in right now to change it? Because things that we've talked about, we're saying these things have changed, but as much as they've changed, they've stayed the same. What can we grasp onto right now to make and leverage change that we haven't been able to do with technology in the past? So it's a great comment, and I want to make sure we talk about that throughout the rest of this event. Expectations. Consumer-driven, always-on, easy, in context of work, no limitations. The expectations of us as an HR function are completely different than they were 10 years ago. 10 years ago, in 2002, no one was using the Internet for HR functions. If you were connecting to a 2400 baud, a 9600 baud, a 14.4 baud modem, up to a site, downloading a Java app to be able to run your employee and manager quote-unquote self-service. Look at what's happened in 10 years, how people are using technology today to do everything. It's as enormous of a shift around technology than you're ever going to see from the standpoint of how I've switched the function from everything being in the hands of HR to being able to put things in the hands of other people. Does the right thing for your company, but being able to. And the expectations of those people are huge. It's not a day that goes by that, how do we get our HR technology to look like Facebook or Google?
Yeah.
Does your HR technology look like Facebook or Google? Does technology need to look like Facebook or Google? Technology really technology for the HR function? HR technology for the workforce? That I just raised in a rambling way there should get us starting to think of, what does this mean from an expectations standpoint, and where we're going as an industry. We have the best technology, I think, for being able to deliver to the workforce and to HR than we've ever had before in industry today. We haven't changed the way we as HR think enough to be able to leverage that technology, which is a key thing going forward.
I love that always-on concept. I think as people, in the advent of the smartphone, the BlackBerry, and the iPhone, it makes us always on, and I think it's taking advantage of making sure HR technology is always on, and really that enabler is really where that opportunity lies, and something we should all be striving to make happen for our organization.
Yep, great. The technology shift from HR focus to workforce I think some of you know, Neil came from the PeopleSoft days. I came from the PeopleSoft days. What's really important about that is when PeopleSoft built its software, or was in Al Gore's mind, but no internet function. Built software. Who did we build it for? We built our function. Software is being built. It's being built to workforce. Now, demand a difference in how I think about deploying it. The difference in how I think about using it. The difference in what I expect of it. Yes and yes. Are we that as HR leaders today? The answer is no, no, and no. The concept subscription versus buy. Something I could do whatever I wanted with it. Subscribing. I can get rid of it in 3 years. Focus on, am I going to get value out of it in 3 years? Am I going to be allowed to continue to spend this money? Specialized technology versus enterprise constrained technology. 4 HR functions that we work with that are using HR technology today because finance told them to use it. They put it in order to get payroll live. Something that actually ties HR to drive the value in the business function that HR is looking to do.
Jason, my favorite comment from HR technology practitioners is, well, we own the licenses.
Right.
That is absolutely not the reason to use it.
Yep. So major shifts in technology, and we think of technology. Configuration versus customization. As much as your business has changed, 78% saying your business has changed a bit, or it's not even recognizable. That's the same way as your HR technology. You've changed it quite a bit, or it's not recognizable. Someone's going to laugh at that, or maybe someone's going to hate me for it. But we've customized software to just do things that are non-competitive advantages long enough. We need to think about really configuring and customizing are things that are going to give our business an advantage, not things that have been around for 50 or 60 years, just there to get payroll done, quote unquote. And we need to do it, but just spend $5 to $7 million a year to get payroll done and not be able to do anything else. And lastly, the technology needs to be part of the overall HR strategy and business strategy, not a separate piece. Not something owned by IT. Not that IT says, this is what you're going to use HR, now use it. But come up with an HR strategy that's tied to a business strategy. How do I deploy that strategy? A piece of technology, there's things. It's what's changed. Consolidation, how they make money. You. They're the only one they want to sell you something. Software. Not us. Vendors are focused on being the best technology people, not being the best process people. Fewer to choose from than ever before. Is that good or bad? The technology doesn't drive success. The vendors tell you that. You need to ask the question or think about it in more sincerity. But the software in the world, in a C or a D grade, gets you an overall grade of a C or a D. D grade software deployed in a model gets you an overall grade of an A or a B. We all leaned on technology way too long. It was going to be the thing that drove us to be successful in HR, and it does not make us successful. How we use the technology that makes us successful. Neil?
Yep. Yeah, I would absolutely agree. I mean, as we talk about strategy today, it's not what vendor should I bet the money on. It's how am I going to leverage it? How am I going to deploy it? What are those critical steps to make it's used and it's adopted and people get it and they get the value out of it? That's the discussion. And it's a big shift from even where the industry was 5 years ago.
So all of the changes that we've discussed, so changes, HR changes, vendor changes, expectation changes, who uses the technology changes, the internet, the iPad, et cetera, and documented your workforce technology strategy. Changed workforce technology strategy. Kind of.
What you got here, Jason?
When I'm going to be the optimist in the group and say that 45% will say yes, they have.
We're going to see a line of. That's my guess.
And what kind of to you? Know that you see more workforce technology and HR technology strategies than I do. What would kind of mean?
Oh, I think kind of it's in my head. I've had conversations about it. It's on a cocktail napkin or a scribbled piece of paper. But there's lots of organizations that have not done the step of clearly documenting it and put it into executive presentation mode where they can really shop it around and really gain buy-in to it.
Who's some of the people? Some of you guys that are chatting so much, what do you think this is going to be? What do you think the answer is going to be? So I'm going to read last names. So Mike, Ken, Julie, what do you think the answer is going to be here? They're not going to be able to respond in time for me to be able to.
Yes, Jason, that's big.
So that's what. So did we play the poll?
The result.
That guess.
Only you and I see that.
The person actually just guessed that. The answer is 29%. We must have displayed it. Oh, someone just said we saw the poll. Thanks for trying to get that across for the person who guessed it exactly. So yes, 29% say yes. 5% say no. 46% say kind of. So, once again, when you look at that, 71% no or kind of, 29% yes. I'd say that's probably accurate. We should ask another question, which is, have you actually changed your workforce technology strategy, and how much have you changed it? On a grade of 1 to 5, and I think we'd continue to see interesting results there. So I'm glad that's 30% have. That's really encouraging that 30% have actually changed it and implemented it. It shows that we're moving in the direction.
Hey, I'd love to see some comments in that chat panel or in the Q&A panel, just letting us know from your perspective what kind of means to you. So if you've answered kind of, steps have you taken? What's left to do in your mind? Would love to see what that looks like.
What a comment said, those that have documented have been regularly attending your webinars. It's a good.
We're making a difference, right?
It's making a difference person by person. That's the goal. So that's good. So why now? It's just another point in time. Back to the question that someone says, we've been talking about all these things forever. Why is this now any different? Let's talk about that. First of all, the HR service delivery model is falling apart. If it has fallen apart, it's about to fall apart or collapse. In almost every case, it was designed and created before the internet. Or there were consumer-based tools on the internet is when we designed and created our HR service delivery model. So think about that, and we think about the types of transactions we put out there. What are the things? Second thing, in HR service delivery models, we've separated the HR transactions management. And employees could care less what we call the things internally. So updating my profile, whether I'm enrolling in a training class, most people, their HR service delivery model doesn't include enrolling in a training class or doing a performance review or doing comp administration. What it involves is, how do I change my address? How do I transfer an employee? How do I approve a merit increase? The transactional things. The delivery model or a workforce service delivery model does separate our transactional things from talent management capabilities. Then do that. Use that as far as employees to actually buy into why they're doing these things. And with silos, they're branded, every single silo is branded differently, every single portal is branded differently, every single tool is different. Once a workforce could care less what tool they're in, what portal they're in, They want to be able to do what it is they need to do their job and get value while they're doing it. You faces drive abandonment. Right. I was with one of the largest companies in the world last week, where I said, they're still saying, what we do is we count the clicks. When the last time you heard count the clicks was, I think that still people are counting the clicks. I'm like, well, what about the touches? What do you mean touches? I'm like, well, what if people are just touching screens now and not actually clicking? Maybe that's the wrong term, count the clicks. As we start to see voice recognition, all things, are we going to continue to try to able to use these count the clicks or models and bury things within bury things and hope that they use it? And most HR service delivery models are not aligned with the HR mission. They're to transactions done, not tied to creating business value. So why now? And is it such a great opportunity now, as almost every organization in the world is going to replace their HR technology in the next 1 to 3 years? Service delivery model. Don't take new technology and place it on top of an old service delivery model. For that?
Yeah, I do. Thanks for asking, Jason. Now is the time. Look at some of our more progressive, and the folks in the space that are really pushing the envelope. I think they're truly taking that progressive view. Their HR service delivery model, they're wholly leveraging technology. They're empowering, they're enabling, they're putting HR in the hands of the user, and they're scaling back HR to be what HR should be, which is a strategic advisor. Right? And they're empowering those people to really go do that job of advocate for the business, strategic advisor to the business, and they're really taking advantage of what's available today to drive that success.
So when you think about this, as you're doing your HR technology strategy, quote unquote, and this concept around an HR technology strategy or workforce technology strategy, you're already starting your implementation or your deployment where you're doing the strategy. When the day one that you start a workforce technology strategy or an HR technology strategy, you started deployment and implementation. Implementation of a strategy doesn't start when you license software. It starts the minute that you start thinking about what your strategy is and selling that. HR technology is at its tipping point. Why now? Most of our software written before the internet was born. It's designed for the HR department. Implemented as a payroll solution, not a CM solution. Tremendous cost with low value add. All organizations will need to upgrade. Now, so why are we doing this webinar now, you guys? Because before you go out and buy a Workday or a SuccessFactors or SAP or an Oracle Fusion or whatever the new software du jour is you're thinking about, as most organizations are going to upgrade, re-implement, replace in the next 1 to 4 years, you have to do it differently. It can't be a lift and shift. It can't just be an upgrade for a technical purpose. You have to rethink why you're using the technology and what it's designed to do. If you don't, all you're doing is taking beautiful technology, place on top of old school thinking, and what you get. The thing you have today in technology. And today, what does it do? It put another generation behind in actually being able to change the HR function by leveraging technology. And guys, we can't afford that. The taking over. And radical statement, I'm sure someone will say they don't like me saying it, but bring your own device. I remember this 3 or 4 years ago, but no one's ever going to use an iPhone. Black's got it nailed. Do you remember, Neil?
Oh, how I don't miss my BlackBerry.
Yeah, BlackBerry's got it nailed.
I don't miss
it. No one ever lets you bring iPhones to work. No one ever lets you use Facebook at work. No one will ever use LinkedIn at work on your mobile device. Well, guess shot. mobile, anytime, any place, anywhere. I mean, iPad announcement today, leveraging a 4G broadband network was faster than most companies' networks from anywhere in the world on an iPad 3, which has more capability than most laptop computers.
Order yet, Jason?
I can learn, I can train, I can webcast, I can Skype, I can do anything I want to anywhere in the world. No restrictions. Technology or maybe my process to do it. The Facebook effect. People are using these things every single day. Bandwidth no longer an issue, and information intelligence is available at our fingertips more than ever before. Just take something as goofy as iTunes. In iTunes, when you search for a song, let's say I'm searching for my favorite new Cowboy Mouth song. Do I say, could you run me a report of all the Cowboy Mouth songs? Could you sort those by X?
When did Cowboy Mouth?
Sorry, taste in music. Well, what if all of a sudden I had to call IT for these things? Those days are gone. So very, very important to understand that that is another big thing as to why now. Organizations are sick of failure. It means the ERP era created many sins. Customers being cuffed by technology. Organizations are sick of that.
We own the licenses, Jason. That's
right. Own the license. We own the license. So we're waiting. We're waiting till the next upgrade before we do succession planning. As pass us. Waiting for the next upgrade before we know what our global talent is. Maintain. Organizations are sick of paying high costs for value. Justification of business cases to put more money and throw more money into this, and a dependence on IT for support when IT is really being transitioned to support things that are quote-unquote more mission critical. So now, go anywhere without reading that organizations are sick of these failure points. H needing to own its own strategy. It doesn't mean that it's doing the coding, guys, but it means H has to know what's out there and has to know how you want to use it and realize that IT is going to be there to support them. If HR just all of a sudden continues to say that technology is not my issue, it's his issue, and throws it over the wall, it will continue to get what it's always gotten. Same thing in a new technology. They own it. The execution of it must be aligned to the business and HR strategy. And what does that mean? It means that throughout the entire deployment of the strategy, which includes the technology, constant alignment checks. If I source my implementation to India, and I'm only looking at what I'm doing and how aligning my deployment to my business HR strategy, I guarantee what you're going to get back is something that doesn't meet the needs of the business again, unless you're constantly all over it. Let's focus on the workforce, not the HR department. Change management needs to be a function of HR, IT. Change management does not equal training.
Or about live.
Or an email about go live. It equals process change, culture change. Why are we doing things? Why do we need different competencies in the HR function, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? You don't just go buy a piece of technology and think it's going to change HR and change how the organization works. And then marketing is mandatory to drive adoption. People are just going to come to this thing and say, I love this. It's great. I have to market it. I have to market it and realize that as I deploy it, every step of the way, I am marketing it to drive adoption.
You throw it over the wall anymore, Jason. I think that's what we've seen so much in the past.
Yep.
Throw the wall.
It's easy to throw it over to the wall to the HR function because people need their jobs. It's throw it over the wall to the workforce. So you see your HR workforce technology platform as in need of repair. Yes, or some days. And I love people. So let's have one of those smarties that actually saw the results before send in what they think the result's going to be here. How many people do you think it's going to say? What percent do you think will say yes? So 75. 88. 85. 90 plus.
I'm tired. I think it's 80, 88 on the money.
85 plus.
Jason, we're going to get many some days here. We're going to have some definitive.
Well, we'll see. I have a feeling there's still going to be some middle of the roads. But, guys, I mean, this is one of those areas that it is so awesome that we have the opportunity to do it now. I mean, people always say, why are you so excited to get up in the morning? Why do you love your job? Why do you love Knowledge Infusion? I love it because this is what we're doing every single day. The opportunity is right now in front of us. Whew. 80%. Blake and Tracy, I'll let you figure out who won the grand prize there. But 8% said in need of repair. 12%, so 95% in need of either yes or some days, which is Naomi Bloom's on the line, who we owe a lot of credit to in this industry. She's like, what I've been doing for the last 2 or 3 decades of trying to get the space changed. You know, our time. It is our time, and that's why this webinar was called There Has Never Been More Important Time for Strategy. Because we have an opportunity to fix this now with the technology that we're all going to be adopting in the next 1 to 3 years. And it's important we don't waste that. So what do we do? We chant strategy, align, action. Strategy, align, action. And what does that mean? As a strategy, we fill our time with what we want, or what we think the boss wants, or what we think the business needs, or by reacting. Strategy, time and resources are usually wasted on piecemeal, different activities that create silos. So workforce technology strategy is not, and you know this already, it's something on bug fix and patches, something that's dictated by a vendor, something that's not updated quarterly, something like a project plan, doesn't have executive visibility, something that only happens to stay in support, and something that doesn't result in business outcomes. So what does that look like? I had a large client last week who said, so what's, extra smarty, so how do you do it? The magic answer. I said, guys, there is no magic answer. The answer is looking at this slide right here, slide 5. What business strategy? Which one? Once again, the business strategy continues to change. Okay? Very important. The business strategy today, 5 business objectives, short and long-term business strategy. So what's the strategy? That is the way aligned to business objectives. And what is the HR, workforce technology strategy? How is it prioritized? What measures and outcomes, and how do I create the case? Once again, what we see most organizations do is they start by picking a technology. Start by picking a technology. Okay, now let's see if we can tie that back to our HR strategy and tie that back to our business strategy. Let's start here and work this way. And the reason that you do is the only way to ever deploy and implement the technology in a way that's going to meet your business needs is then what your business needs are, and you have alignment there. I'll be putting in technology and continuing to put in technology just for the sake of technology. A couple questions came in. One said, for our company, it was only after HR completed a 3-year strategy we were able to come up with our workforce technology strategy. Yep, and that's right. A lot of times HR doesn't know what its strategy is. Or a lot of times we're buying talent management technology without talent management people knowing what their talent management strategy is. So it's important to look at it and say, do we have it? the thing is a question that just came in says, can you help define the scope of what you mean by workforce technology strategy? And it's a little bit of a buzzword when I say it, but what we try to do is get organizations to, when they're talking about an HR technology strategy, they're talking about technology for the HR department. And what we try to do is we try to get organizations to realize that the technology today is going to be used by the workforce, and it's more than just the stuff that's tied to the HR department. It includes the portal, it includes collaboration, it includes mobile capabilities, it includes business intelligence and how I'm pushing out information to people, as well as the general stuff that helps HR and the HR function uses. Talking about workforce technology strategy, it's how do I push out everything that HR cares about to be successful, but push out to the workforce and ensure that it ties into a way that the workforce understands it and it's not speaking HR language.
It is so much more than just employee and manager self-service. I can't give it every time I hear, well, what you're talking about is employee and manager self-service, right? No, I think you've missed the point. It's so much more than that.
Important just to keep that stuff in mind. Keep in mind as you're going through is that align. Stay aligned. The other thing that we have to do is we have to stay agile. I said business changes faster than it ever has. We have to be able to be mind readers to a degree and have relationships with our executives to be able to say that I think these things are going to change in our business. We're going to go into Canada. I think we're going into Japan. We can't put in what we were thinking about. Or I need to do this in a different way than I've done it in the past. There's a change coming down the pipe. How do I make sure that my work technology is agile enough that I'm not landlocked, adapt to change, and meet the needs of the business again? The minute that starts to happen, that's where customization comes into play. Not all customization is bad. A lot of customization for non-competitive advantage type things come into play. Going out and breaking my strategy and buying things in silos that don't talk to each other. I report on things together. I end up with 67 technologies, and then being in this mess where I have to start all over again. How do I create this elastic infrastructure to make sure that I am doing it? There's a great question that comes in that I'll do in a second that I want to make sure we get to.
I love that concept, Jason. The elastic infrastructure. It's a great way to describe it.
Quote from one of our colleagues, Brian Abramowitz, who uses that term elegantly, daily. So look at closing the execution gap. What does that mean? What you need to do, you actually do. And one of the things that's really important about this, and I just want to make sure that we get this point across as you build your HR technology strategy that or your workforce technology strategy, as Neil's going to talk to you in a second, is a lot of the value is here in the stuff that we never get to. Build your strategy up here. I think we're great. I think we're going to go out, we're going to buy a piece of technology. I think we make the case, and we're ready, et cetera, et cetera. When we put it in, phase one's going to just be blah, blah, blah. Phase two, that's when we'll really get to this value add stuff. What happens? Run out of money. Phase one's a flop, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I can never get to what is. Value comes in. So I keep doing this habit trail of never getting there. And one of the things that's really, really important is to be able to say, how to blend some of the phase one things with these phase one value add things to say my phase one is truly going to be what I plan to do, which will continue to get more funding and continue to get more money. We're much more scrutinized now than ever before. If phase one fails, people back. When you go to a website and the website's good, are you go back to it? It's hard to get people back. Once again, when we were pushing the stuff to the HR department, we had an audience of 1%. Maybe 1% of the entire enterprise was using this software before, using technology before. Today,
very captive. They're very captive.
Very captive. They were stuck behind their desk, their heads down, clicking the clicks, or just looking at the keypad. Today, I'm putting this out to 99 or 100% of the organization. It's completely different in trying to achieve today, charter audience. So how do we respond? Do we just buy more software? Which has been our response in the past. Neil, before we get to this, there's a couple really good questions that I want to take to. One says it's also equally important how you plan and prioritize from the beginning, so that what you do is vet business impact first. Please said, love it, and we're going to talk to that in a second. And a question, and I'll turn to you, Neil. Can you still reach successful? Can you still be successful without the latest technology, or is it engagement and execution? Still reach success without the latest technology.
Absolutely.
And I hope you heard that. Can you still be successful without the latest technology? And the answer to that is a huge, huge yes. So it doesn't mean you have to go out and buy new technology. There's things in place. There's reasons why you do. And some of that is how software is delivered. There's cost. Some of that is total cost of ownership, et cetera, et cetera. But we have a lot of organizations who are in the world of doing upgrades today. And like you guys, you have the tools today to be successful. You deployed them in a way where your focus at the time was payroll, or your focus at the time was, if I count how many heads I have versus truly making those heads count. And there's a big difference. So let's go to this. How do we respond and what do we do?
Oh, Jason, thank you for turning it over. One of the things I wanted to start out with was really our technology strategy defined, right? So we at HR or at Knowledge Infusion really approach our technology strategy by identifying and articulating the actions, resources necessary to achieve long-term human capital, talent, and business objectives. And business in that statement really being primary. It's identifying those specific people, process, and technology actions that are going to help deliver those things. We had that question just a moment ago, is it possible without the latest and greatest technology? We talked very early on in the webinar today that it really is, 40-40-20, people and process and technology. And lots of times it's taking better advantage of what we have today and making sure that the user community, our employees, our managers, our leaders, know what we're doing, know what they need to do, and can leverage those tools as part of their daily work. Really taking that advantage to do that stuff in a way that makes sense to the business. They get it, they get the buy-in, they understand why they need to do it. If you advance the slide, I think we'll start to help to answer some of the other questions that have come in here. But what you think to yourself, well, really what's included in an HR technology strategy? It's really a guide. It's a document that really charts the course, that paints path for how HR and HR technology are going to help deliver business capability. It should be that comprehensive plan of action. It can be used in an executive setting, in the director level, in elevator, if you will, really to educate people on where the department is going, what they're delivering, how they're going to be delivering it, and most importantly, how the business is going to be different after you're done doing what you're doing. A solid strategy of any organization, and as you look at HR technology, needs to include some very key things as part of it that help to create those anchors in that document to drive the clarity, to make sure people understand what that strategy is all about and what it's going to deliver to the organization. Those things listed here, I think, are pretty self-explanatory, but really starting with your objectives and your guiding principles. Where are you going? What's going to guide your work? Really clearly defining out what those business outcomes are that you're trying to drive for. Is it things in efficiency? Is it things in effectiveness? where are you going from a capability perspective to make sure that the business has more than it has today? I've stated, over and over again during this webcast and others, it's making sure there is that clear alignment to the business and HR strategy. If you are doing things with HR technology that really don't help to fill those strategies, chances are you probably shouldn't be doing them. Really driving that future state vision and being very crystal clear about what that is, and making sure your actions, your prioritization of how that gets delivered to the organization is really developed in a way that delivers those critical capabilities to the business in the timeline that the business needs them. Jump ahead here. One of the questions that came in, from Todd Grubbs was, can you help define the scope of what we mean by workforce technology strategy? I've used the graphic on screen now probably for the better part of 3 or 4 years as we've worked with our enterprise clients on developing that workforce technology strategy. And the footprint that you really see represented here really addresses, all things HR to business, and it addresses them in a way that takes best advantage of technology and the capabilities that exist in the market today to get business what it needs on a couple of different levels. You see what's represented here really in the dark blue color on your monitor. It's really those enabling technologies that help to drive service delivery to the business. How are we going to enable 2 key pieces of the HR service delivery model? So that of portal and HR portal, and that of the shared service center, the call center, the contact center, HR direct, call it what you will, but really that telephone support mechanism and ticket response system that a lot of progressive HR shops have really driven to. Second piece is really that workforce administration layer, or the core layer, your foundation, that critical component that really drives the whole model, really represented here in medium blue, but really being that piece that really drives all of the indicative data in HR. What is that foundation by which we're going to capture employee data, capture time, drive payroll, understand benefits, really that core data model that really drives the organization, and really making that data model consumer grade, in which, if we're going to give managers transactions and ask them to handle transfers within the organization, we make it an easy process for them to do it. And the model is intuitive. You don't need a PhD in the job codes in order to make that happen. The last piece here really is, the stuff you see here in green, which is really the strategic stuff. It's where HR is really excited today, within that integrated talent management space, in metrics, analytics, talent data, but the stuff that really drives the effectiveness quotient of efficiency and effectiveness. What do we know more about our workforce today that we didn't know yesterday? And can we capture that data and provide it to the people that need it with them asking, and without giving it to them in lines and rows of data? How do we embed that stuff in the day-to-day to empower our managers, our leaders, to be better at what they do and not need HR to hold their hand as they do it? So we look at the scope of really what we're talking about. This is that lens that we want to guide, particularly Knowledge Fusion's clients through, to make sure that they're addressing the things you see here on screen. The last piece here is the sidebar on the right, which really that infrastructure piece. This is really that critical area, where partnering with IT is paramount. How do we make sure, that what we're doing from an overall access and security and data and integration perspective is going to fit with the rest of the technology that we have in the organization. There was a question earlier on about Safe Harbor and Patriot Act, and making sure that we're doing the right things when it comes to SaaS-based technology. Most organizations that we work with, IT does a great job of partnering HR to do that safety check or that sanity check to ensure that SaaS vendor that you have plans to work with is up to par. Have those safeguards in place. So don't forget about IT in this. I mean, treat them as the partner they can and should be, but take control of your own destiny and really start to drive where you're going. It's very clear articulation of what you see here.
So good. What we have 95% of the people or 90-some% of the people on the phone saying their HR technology or workforce technology needs repair. So let's break down where that is. Most people, if we start right here in the core HR, they've implemented the system in order to payroll life and have it entered, have it broken out by country, have it broken out by region instead of global, have org structure broken, down roles set up specifically, down jobs standardized, have 5,000 jobs for 10,000 employees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Basically, one thing that I just said is there, the rest of this stuff is all pretty much shot. You made it together and band together, Band-Aid. I can't do role-based access here at my portal level, or I haven't invested in that, then I'm going to be drilling into every transaction. If I have my org structure right, then I'll be able to do any of the information transactions. If I have my core foundation right, I'm not able to look at talent on a global basis. Look at talent on a global basis the way that I need to. If I don't have my core right, I'm not going to be able to do workforce intelligence or analytics in a way that makes sense. So you buy best-of-breed solutions around all of these things and meet transactional need, quote unquote, and maybe meet the strategic need. But if this core is broken, and when broken, that doesn't mean broken because you broke it. It can because maybe the business has changed. It means broken because our strategic direction has changed, or broken because of acquisitions that have happened that are still on other systems. Probably the wrong word, but not functioning correctly. There's other stuff I never get to tell you or potential ROI from, as mentioned elegantly by one of the people listening to this. I never get the true value or the potential ROI if this core is broken. And once again, why is this important? The question said, why is this different now? Ask me that. Because every one of us is going to upgrade, replace, or install our core HR system in the next 1 to 4 years. That said, we have to fix this so the rest of this stuff can work and we realize the value from it. So go ahead.
Jason, just real quick back on that last slide. Yep. I love that comment. And it's your description there. I think is spot on. And it's refocusing on all the stuff you have circled there in that core HR foundation bucket in a dramatically different way. For 30 plus years, we've been operating, in the lens and under the guise of we are HR, we get it, we know why we did it. But the minute that we pass that over the wall to the business, expect the business to interact in things like managed self-service or talent management. And part of it, we need thinking about it much different. We really need to consumerize that stuff to make sense to more than just HR, right? And it's taking that opportunity to really consumerize our data model, make it intuitive, make it intelligent, is really the opportunity that we need to take. And
Neil,
most organizations miss that step. They skip.
I always laugh at organizations that say they don't need to invest in the core because they're using best of breed for talent management. The interesting thing is that as they have an applicant over here applying for a job and they bring that data over into their core, bring over name, address, and department. Why? Because they haven't set up the talent management data fields within the core. And why can't I run a report showing me all this stuff? It's because of data here, I've got data here, and I've got 10 more of these boxes the rest of the organization. This core thing, it's not sexy, but it's key to the future of making HR strategic. Trust us. If you come and get it right, HR will never realize the strategic value and be able to execute the process it wants to.
Core is sexy. It's just me. And if anybody else out there thinks core is sexy, say it out loud.
Yeah, so sexy, and they know it.
Good tweet.
Exactly. So let's go on to how you do this. So
let's talk about
methodology?
How we do this. You know, each of you out there, I think 30% of you said, yep, we have a HR technology strategy. It's baked. It's communicated. It's out there. You know, there's 70% of you that said no or kind of. You know, this is really the method by which we go through the process to start to, you know, lay that strategy out in a very clear, concise way. You know, build support for it, really build the business case to act and execute on it. And it includes 5, you know, pretty basic steps, right? Really, you know, what we all strive to do is plan our efforts. You know, make sure the right stakeholders are involved. Make sure that we're going to approach the organization in the right way. You know, the old adage goes, fail to plan to fail. Well, we want to plan, so let's not fail. Phase 2 is really that exhaustive discovery process, right? And the key piece of this that I think gets missed when, you know, organizations do this themselves is we spend a lot of time talking to the business, right, about what the business needs to be successful, what the critical capabilities are that they need in order to, you know, drive the next generation of their business strategy. And really making sure that this strategy is developed out through that business lens and not just HR's view on the world. Really, you know, driving that process through and really understanding, you know, what those key opportunities are is really paramount in that discovery phase. You know, once we know where you're at and, you know, some of those things that are hanging out there, it's really time to begin to set that future state vision. So bringing those right stakeholders into the room, you know, having that thoughtful conversation, putting those anchors in place of what that future is going to look like. What are those key criteria? What are those critical elements of that future state vision that we want to abide by as we do things like create vendor partnerships, like configure software, like deploy software to the business? Once we know where you're at and where you're going, it's a matter of really creating that critical recommendation set that will guide our efforts going forward and really laying out that clear path that says here are the things that we need to do to be successful long term. It's the process by which we go from step, you know, point A to point B, you know, step 1 to step, you know, 57, but really getting to a place where we, you know, we can clearly lay out, you know, what those activities are, what those projects are that are going to help us do it. Critical element of this phase is really that step of prioritizing. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day. It's going to take a while. It's, you know, often a 3 to 5 year roadmap by which we are going to deploy that strategy to the business. And we have to pick the things that are going to give us the biggest lift up front and continue to demonstrate to the business the value that they're receiving as we're on our journey. So it's really a process of putting that critical prioritization in place to make sure that we get that sequence down right and get some big wins really up front in the process. The timeline that you see really represented on screen is a typical timeline for, you know, most strategy map efforts. You can see that this is a process that plays itself out really, you know, over anywhere between a 12 and 16 week timeline, with really key milestones achieved throughout that timeline. And again, as we do these projects, you know, it moves as fast or as slow as the business is willing to move as it goes, and really taking that opportunity to align those key stakeholders up front, help them understand what type of time that they will need to commit in this process is often critical to ensure we get the right mind share as we go through the process. And we page through, you might say, what does some of this stuff look like? Well, you see on screen right now just a quick snapshot of some guiding principles that we've framed with one of our clients. This is a nice example of what some of those guiding principles might look like. We've also got in here a nice example of a vision map, which is a term we at Knowledge Infusion use for that future state vision. So really making that overall statement of what is we're attempting to do, what are the key anchors of what we're going to do with it, And then what really are those descriptors of those key anchors? If we say something out like globally relevant, what does that mean? Another critical component of what we will do throughout that strategy map process, and this is always very helpful to convey, what we're doing and why we're doing it with critical, executives in that process, is really define where we're at from a current state maturity perspective, and then really plot those anchors out there to say, here is really where we want to invest our time. This is where we want to put, the emphasis of what we're doing so that we can truly transform how we approach the business in that capacity, or, why it's important to just be okay at what we do. Because, by being transformational, it really is not going to give us the business lift we need. So leveraging that sort of thing to really drive understanding of what we're up to. The slide you see on screen right now is really where the rubber meets the road, and we start to get people digging into the detail. But that's really the process of defining out what that 3 to 5 year strategic roadmap is going to look like. What are our sequence of events? How long are certain initiatives? And how will that play out over time? This is a critical discussion with all key stakeholders, really to set the expectation of what the work is over that timeline of really executing on strategy. Great snapshot of an example roadmap from one of our large global clients.
And Neil, I want to just jump in here really quickly, because one of the things that's really important for you guys to understand on any roadmap that you guys create and use is that, in red here are some systems, but in here are processes. I think what's very important in here is to put in change and change management. Think about people, process, and technology. All of those things have to be on your roadmap. All you have on your roadmap is the technology, but you don't tie in these process decisions, and remember that your process decision happens before the system departs. Suddenly your system deployment is ahead of your process. You pour the quicksand, and you're... So, very, very important that you not only map out the systems, which is where a lot of people get stuck. They pick the software, they go into systems implementation mode with a systems integrator, and they're just in systems mode, but they don't look at the overall program and say, what do I have to do from a process standpoint? What do I have to do from a change standpoint? And how do I make sure that the strategy that I set out back here, this overall vision that I set out, executed on, they have to put all of this together in this overall roadmap. And that's, once again, when people say we have a roadmap and they hand it to us, it is only the technology.
Here's technology projects we're going to work on this year. That's not a roadmap. Jason's got up on screen right now, again, is really a shot of that fear detail. What does it mean when we're going to do this aspect of our roadmap? What are some of the risks, dependencies, key components of what that looks like? What are some of those sub-steps in that process? And then lastly, what he'll show here is a view of how we prioritize, which I think is important to call out, which is making sure that as we're having that dialogue about what comes first, second, third, fourth in that roadmap, it's talking about the business value that it generates, and really the urgency by which we need to get it done. Do we have to do it this year for compliance purposes because we're going to run out of support? And what is the impact that the business gets? Is it going to be something that drives business value as we go? And how does that look? I'm going to take a really quick second here as we're winding down. I want to call out a few organizations that have really participated at high level today in that Q&A chat stream. Overstock.com, Yahoo, WellPoint Financial, Progressive Insurance, and Lawrence Glee Labs. Guys, thanks for your participation today. You've made this webinar a lot of fun and a lot of interaction in the dialogue.
And thanks, Neil. So wanted to share with you some examples so that you could see, so those of you that already have a strategy, make sure you've got the tools and things that we showed there, that you're doing it to that level of extent. How do we make sure that execution occurs? So once we've got all this, how did that execution gap? one of the biggest ways is understanding that change management starts during strategy creation. You have to start thinking about change immediately. It's complex. And you have to think about simplicity. Where can I simplify? Black beats gray. The more gray, the more I have questions about where I'm going. Measurement drives behavior. So anything that we do when we think about helping organizations with those priorities is how are you going to measure success? If I put it here, if I put it here, if I put it here, how am I going to measure whether or not that's successful? And is that an HR measure or a business measure? Did my high return targets? Over when strategy deployment begins. I can't say this enough. So many times people buy the technology, then all of a sudden when implementation starts, they do the same thing. They start discovery again. But discovery with a different set of buyers. They set it with the implementation people, the IT people, some lower-level HR people that don't have visibility into the vision. Hey, how are you doing things today? And the implementation happens the way that they're doing things today, trying to do things going forward. So what I always say is 30 to 40% of all the work that we do in the strategy of work with clients is actually 30 to 40% savings when it comes time to do deployment. Of what I don't have to do again to ensure that I'm deploying a strategy, not deploying a technology. Deploy technology. You deploy strategy. Technology is a part of that. Transparency drives accountability. So the more that I give visibility into where I'm going, and more accountable my overall strategy looks like. So we'll put some contact information up here with some Twitter contacts, some blog information, email information, Facebook, blah, blah, all the different places to reach us. What I want to do real quickly is get to a few of the questions that came in and just make sure that we address them. There's a question, Neil, that says, are you saying that a SaaS delivery is easier to consumerize than premise delivery? Do you want to take that or do you want me to?
Good, Jason. I think the opportunity that SaaS creates with configuration, the nimbleness, the agileness of that software, I would definitely say that's the case. But the critical step to doing it is really beginning with the end in mind as you're, implementing and designing out your data is that critical step as you implement. SaaS allows you to be nimble, allows you to be agile. What it does do is do that critical step for you of thinking about your data before you put it in the system.
Good point. And the other thing I was going to say is SaaS versus on-premise is a delivery model. Consumerization is a value statement. So the reason that consumers find technology good to use is the value they get from it. Out 8 transactions, even in the most consumerized way, yet the value to the employee, it's consumerized. The delivery model, technology that's used today in SaaS technology look much more like consumerization, Yahoo, Amazon, et cetera, than on-premise software. It's just based on technology itself. But that's not what drives it to consumerization. What drives it to consumerization is all the work that you have to do to make sure that there's value added to the employee, and that I'm focusing on the change in the value that's added there. The one question, Blake, I want to get to, and anyway, if you guys have other questions, please send them in, and we'll see if we can get to a few more before we wrap up here. Who's mostly at fault when the execution gap occurs? That is, customer or vendor. Can vendors better address reducing the gap? What's most important about this statement, this question to me, is that our expectations on the vendors are wrong. We're only going to be able to do so much. Technology vendors, that's what they are. They're technology vendors. In software as a service delivery model, their job is to deliver software. Their job is not to deliver process change. Their job is not to deliver change management change. Their job is not to deliver strategy. Their job is to deliver the best in the world. Where that execution gap occurs, for this part, is the fault of the customer, thinking that the technology is going to make up for all the process and people issues that the organization, when in fact all technology does is support those people and process issues. So who's at fault for the execution gap? In most cases, I would say the customer. There are cases where it's the vendor, where the vendor doesn't teach the customer what they need to do. Again, I'd look back at the expectation. The reason that we're in the business of end-to-end strategy and deployment is making sure that both the strategy and the implementation of that strategy are successful. They're applying the piece of software. But as we know, in order to successfully deploy strategy, it's much more than the software. More question. How big a deal is a huge lack of integration in the picture of not needing the latest technology to succeed? Really interesting question. So, once you think of integration, there's different types of integration that are important to think about. There's data integration, there's process integration, and then there's user experience integration. So your question, you have to actually look back at those things. If I'm looking at process integration is really hard to build. Experience integration can actually be quite easy to build if you have the right portal tools and the right web-based tools on top of older technology. So you cover up lack of integration from a user experience standpoint with portal technology and the right user experience technology. You can't cover up process integration, and you can't cover up data integration with things. So I'm asking employees to enter data 8 times because I don't have it stored anywhere else, or my processes aren't tied to each other. So to answer the question, you have to actually look at what type of integration are you speaking about. I think in 92 minutes, we've covered a ton of content and a ton of questions. I'd love for the 170-some people that are on to say that this is of value or not. I'm just saying yes or no. I know you're going to be asked to fill out a survey in a minute, but immediate gratification is important. So say no and then send an email as to why it wasn't. Blake, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Neil. Again, to reiterate Jason's point, there was a lot of content covered in today's discussion. All attendees will receive an email with instructions on how to both download the slides as well as download the replay so you can share with your teammates and colleagues. So I thank you, everyone, for joining. All of us at Knowledge Infusion, we hope you guys have a great day.